Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and out of the many things in Penacony livestream that was going on, it was amazing. I highly recommend you check it out if you're interested, if you have an hour to spare. But what I want to value add to you is something that is going to change in the meta. It's going to affect everything of how things are being done right now. And this video, I want to talk about a simple boss that you currently see on screen, this one that they teased in the live stream. It has a very simple mechanic, but it's going to change the way that you want to build your teams, and you should prepare for it now so that you don't get stumped when it actually comes out. So what is it basically doing? Let me just show you guys what it does. Once it gets a certain stacks, it immediately deals fatal damage to your teammates, and then you'll be imprisoned. So very similar to the likes of what's his name, the Savarot boss. And then if you manage to hit it with certain kind of weakness breaking, they get to come back onto the field with half life, or you can see, and something like that. But it does show, you look over here, as you go on deeper, it can swipe 2 of your units and does fatal damage to 2, and pretty much you're left with whatever you have against the rest of them. So how does this exactly affect things? I think some of you quicker ones, at least if you can link the dots together, you already will be feeling it. This character here is going to get eaten alive. She's no longer to be as broken as she was. We talked about her video, her kit in the why I think she's ridiculously overpowered. I did mention in that video, if you guys mentioned, the only thing that can power creep Fucc is fatal damage, or the enemy dealing so much damage that your whole team will just die. And this boss counters Fucc because it doesn't care how much damage you do anymore. You cannot keep him alive because it's a one-hit KO move, basically. I don't know whether you can aggro draw it to someone else. It seems like it targets the highest attack, because Dan Heng was the one being targeted most of the time. I'm not exactly too sure. If it can be aggroed away, maybe you can still justify Fire MC, Japart, these characters with Ton, slightly higher aggro draw with Landal's Choice and their passive and stuff. But definitely healers like Luota, healers like Ho, characters that have damage mitigation like Fucc are completely blown out of the water, which this actually affects my ranking of characters moving forward as well. But we'll talk about that in another later video. But first things first, other than Fucc, what else is affected? Some of you who don't have Fucc, you're I don't care, I don't have Fucc anyway. Sustained characters are affected, so if you run Luota, you run Ho, all these characters will be less useful now, because you no longer care whether you kill them or not. You just get one-shotted if you can't deal with the enemy properly. The other teams that will be affected is actually affecting a lot of us, is hyper carry teams that include a character like Jingliu, a character like Imbibitor Lune. If any of you are playing Zealer, Jingyuan still in your team compositions, all these characters will likely be absolutely destroyed, because imagine if he fatal damages your Jingliu, and who else do you have in your hyper carry team? You have Bronya on your team maybe, who doesn't do any break damage whatsoever, not significant amounts, so you can't rescue your Jingliu from that imprisonment before the guy gets his stacks. Your other ones are like Tingyun, for example. You don't really have much resources available. She doesn't do that much lightning break, so you're pretty much stuck if you're playing hyper carry teams, and that is your only source of damage, which is a huge problem as well. But of course, this video is not just giving you bad news, right? I want to give you a solution and how you can actually build your roster to tackle that menace. We don't exactly know his mechanics, but this shows that Hoyoverse is willing to introduce these kind of fatal damage, and they are going to introduce it more in future as well, because it has been already entered into the game. It's not as if it's a mystery. Likely we might see more of it moving forward too. So first things first, what are some team compositions that work well? Some of you faster ones, you already got it. Team compositions that have damage coming from multiple sources. Of course, they wanted to sell Black Swan, they wanted to sell DOT characters. I do think characters like Kafka, for example, Black Swan Kafka team compositions where you rely a lot on DOT, these teams will outperform, because you take Kafka out of the picture, you still have Black Swan, you still have Sampo maybe in your second and third slot. You take out Black Swan, you have Kafka and Sampo. You take out Sampo, you have blah blah blah. You still have some kind of damage sources coming from here and there. These team compositions likely will outperform moving forward without a center focus on a main DPS. So DOT teams, I think, is the first option. The second team, of course, I want to give a way out for people that don't really care too much about DOT teams, because it's full of waifus. Maybe you're a husbando lover. I think Doctor ratio is still likely going to be quite strong. because he doesn't really depend on like a hyper carry style. You could play him with an Imbibitor Lune and eventually a Sparkle who buffs skill points. So you run like a Imbibitor Lune, you run a Doctor Ratio for a double imaginary team, so you have a double DPS. Put Sparkle and your last slot, maybe some sort of a slight sustain, so you at least heal up your characters here and there, like maybe with a Luo Chat or a Huo Huo in your team compositions, or even Lynx, Natasha, whoever you want to add into your final slot. I think that is an option. A bit more expensive because you need Imbibitor Lune as well as Sparkle, but Doctor Ratio could work in that team. Or if you don't care too much about that, you can maybe play Doctor Ratio together with another DPS. Like another team composition totally that I can give you an example would be like a Blade together with a Jingliu team. Double DPS kind of teams likely will do a lot better as well to address units that take out like critical roles. So moving forward, I think these are the types of teams that will outperform in fatal damage kind of rosters. We can see that as well. So that's what I wanted to mention. What do you guys think? Are you afraid of this boss? Do you think that it's going to be even scarier than we thought? Fatal damage is ridiculous because we can't counter it. You can't like heal it off. You have to actually do damage. And I think hyper carry teams might be on a decline, but that's just my initial thoughts. More analysis, team compositions will be released later on. Once it goes into the memory of chaos, I'll give you some tips as well. Stay tuned to the channel. We have tons of new content coming up for 2.0. Let me get to work now. Anyways, guys, check out the video if you haven't. Enjoy the rest of the live stream and can't wait for Penacony. See you there.